Welcome to Feedback Fatigue. I'm Jake Hughes.
And I'm Katie Ritter.
Katie, I can't keep cutting the audio every time we do this. It's about tempo. We're supposed to behave like we have great chemistry here. If we don't have great chem, nobody's going to like us.
What do you mean? Was that too slow?
Welcome to Feedback Fatigue. I'm Jake
and I'm
Hughes.
Katie Ritter.
I'm Katie Ritter.
Okay. I got it. One more time.
What's going on, Katie?
Okay, I want to talk to you about something that I recently discovered. Have you ever heard of duck stamps?
I have not.
Okay.
What's that?
So, if you hunt ducks, you have to buy this stamp to be able to do it. And
the animal?
Yeah. So, I mean, I know this is going somewhere. I know it's not like a strong start, but you have to buy these stamps, and they're $25 a year. And the proceeds from the stamps go towards preserving wetlands across the United States. So it's a environmental preservation move. People collect them, like even if they're not duck hunters, people collect them just to have. And every year you can submit a painting to this committee that judges the painting. It has to be a specific duck, and it has to be anatomically accurate. We have no room for like a Donald duck. It needs to be a specific duck and accurate.
This is not a creative exercise.
No, this is precision. So the other day I get a text from my uncle in this big group chat, and my cousin drew a painting to have this submitted to a committee. So there was like 200 paintings that he got through, and there's live judging. So I started to get into it. I was like, this is really cool. His painting was really cool.
Is there like a digital feed?
Yes, there's a YouTube feed where so I had it up. I'm like, I am locked in, and it's dramatic because the screen, it's 5 judges, and they put the painting on the screen, and they wait 10 seconds, and then they go, judge, and then in a second the painting is off the screen and it just says in or out. So like painting will go up, 10 seconds, judge, and then each judge has in or out next to their name, and it flashes back to the judges, and then it says out. So they go through all 250 of them.
Do they have like a button that they hit?
I think they hit an in or out, button. And on the feed it populates like in or out. He did not make it.
What are the credentials of the judges?
That's a good question. I haven't dug into the panel. But I need to do that.
What were they wearing?
They were wearing they were wearing nice clothes. Like this was not a low budget production. This was like official.
This is like highbrow suits, turtlenecks, chunky glasses.
Yeah, they looked like they knew what they were talking about. So I asked my cousin, I was like, what? Because he was like, I didn't make it past the first round, which of course I know because I was watching the feed for 5 hours. Just had it up. And I asked him like, talk to me a little bit more about the requirements. And he said, it needs to be an image created by hand. It needs to be a specific size, and it needs to prominently feature one of the ducks for that year. There are others but those are the big ones. And so he kind of laid that out for me. But yeah, so now I'm really into it. John Oliver has a 10-minute special on it with like drama between 2 prominent duck painters. And it's pretty good. So there you go.
You, Katie Ritter, are going to have a fantastic retirement. Endless hobbies.
Yeah.
You will never be bored a day in your life.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm just glad I discovered this, and I'm looking forward to discovering more things like this. So check it out if you're interested.
I think our guest on episode 2, Josh Becerra, he could be a duck stamp
Be like,
judge.
You talked about what before my episode? Like, what? Why?
I could see it.
Well, Josh is awesome. And we have a great episode for you today. Let's get into it.
Let's get into Josh. Josh is the CMO of Pink Taco, so we're going outside multifamily for episode 2, looking at hospitality, providing a new perspective on the show, so this should be a fun one. Pink Taco is a restaurant group, locations in New York, LA, DC, and Boston. The headline, the show title is Consistency in Operations is the Best Marketing Strategy.
Yep. Josh made it very clear. He works for operations. He is part of their team and relies on them. And what I loved about Josh is his open line of communications. You could just tell he was really close to his GMs and folks on site at multiple restaurants, and that there was an open door policy. And I think that good communication leads to some excellent results. So he's awesome and has some great nuggets on and anecdotal stories on how he's used feedback, and then how sometimes he's implemented something and operationally it just wasn't going to work. And so sometimes the lack of first checking with on-site teams on implementation and how to have that open line of communication. So some really great stuff on this episode.
Josh talks a little bit about how younger generations are using crowdsourced feedback. Gen Z makes an appearance in this episode. Some good stuff there. So we're going to get into it. Before we do, you can find Feedback Fatigue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wideville.com, and follow Katie Ritter for clips. Season 1, Episode 2, Josh Becerra.
As you stare at my face, Joshua, I have a sunburn. I built a house yesterday. Well, I didn't build a full house.
You built a whole house?
But no. I volunteered for Habitat for Humanity. And
awesome.
I spent the day chipping a wood block out of a cement foundation. And I was doing it wrong for an hour. And apparently I was blaming my tools. I was getting so frustrated because I was like, this chisel is not, it's blunt. It's too blunt. It's not making this work. And I was getting so frustrated because only a poor craftsman blames their tools. So I'm saying this to myself. I'm in and out.
You're a craftsman.
I'm in and out
now.
getting new chisels. Nothing's working. Yeah, I'm a craftsman. Thank you very much. And finally, this woman came over. God bless her. She was like, "Hey, Katie, you're chiseling against the grain. Like the wood it won't come off that way." So I was going against the grain, vertical. The wood was horizontal. So finally I switched chiseled horizontal, and it was like, oh my gosh.
How would you describe Pink Taco to our listeners?
Pink Taco is rock and roll vibe dining. And what that means is that we're edgy, we're fun. We take our food and our beverage and our service super seriously. But outside of that, we don't take ourselves too seriously. So you'll find, really fun items on our menu. You'll see it in a lot of our marketing. A lot of our stuff is very like tongue-in-cheek. Our post yesterday, as an example, on social was the one flight that won't be canceled. And it was just our March burrito flight. Leave your baggage at the door. No Karens on this flight. I mean, so it's playful. It's fun while still, uncompromising when it comes to the quality of our food and beverage.
Katie sent me your LinkedIn.
I sent a screenshot.
Do you want to read it?
I did. I sent a screenshot, and I won't read the whole thing. And I sent it to Jake, and I was like, "This is fire." The last 3 lines: "Welcome to the hallowed halls of taco truth. Welcome to where the heat lives up to the hype. Welcome to Pink Taco." I got chills. I gotta be honest.
Devoted to damn good tacos. Anyone can make tacos. Hell, there are plenty of places that are great at it. Pink Taco isn't just another taco joint. It's sacred ground.
Sacred ground. Well, and so I mean, the cool thing about Pink Taco that I don't think a lot of people know is, there's been this family history of restaurants. It started with Morton's Steakhouse. That was grandpa. And then dad started Hard Rock Cafe. And then son started Pink
Wow.
Taco. So it was like with every iteration of a new generation, it's like, how can we get just a little edgier? Which was fun. I think with Pink Taco specifically, you know, Harry Morton, our founder, was so intertwined with the, you know, with the music and entertainment world, and rightfully so. His father started Hard Rock
Right.
Cafe. And I think that that's really what cemented Pink Taco into this like super fun, vibrant, against the grain brand.
That's awesome. And tell us a little bit about how you arrived there. I mean, you've been in the marketing for 17, 20 years, I think the last time when we talked. Tell us a little about your career and how you landed here.
Now that you've aged me,
Sorry, I just totally blew that up for you.
I would have done it.
Let you decide what number you wanted to throw out there.
I would have done that in the 3 years that I've been in marketing. I would have done it myself. I grew up in the industry. I think the story is the same for so many of us. My first job was working for my mother. I would come home from school. I'd sit on the couch. I'd go watch like Disney Afternoon, and then she'd walk in the door and go, the dishwasher called out, which meant like go upstairs, grab your black outfit, like get in the car, we're going. So restaurants is it's kind of all I knew. I mean, I worked in the industry. My sisters worked in the industry. My mother, my aunt, my uncle was the executive chef. There was no easy way out. And I used hospitality as the way to put me through college so that, you know, when I got out of college, I could break free from the restaurant industry. Clearly that did not happen. I became a director of sales and marketing for an Italian restaurant group in LA at 23. I was there for 4 years, became a publicist and marketeer for restaurants, hotels, and nightlife in LA for 6. Was poached by the One Group for, which is where I was for the last 7 years, as their vice president of marketing with SDK Steakhouse and Kona Grill. And then I got a phone call this past summer from a recruiter talking about this Mexican brand that she couldn't tell me the name of. And 5 minutes into the conversation, I was like, "Is this Pink Taco?" He's like, "What did I say? What did I do? How did I give that away?" I just, you know, I've been a patron of this brand for 17 years. You know, like I said earlier, I mean, Pink Taco is so intertwined with the music and entertainment industry, and I married into that industry, and so every happy hour, every dinner, everything happened at Pink Taco. I don't remember a lot of them. Drinks are very good. But it's a brand that I have followed, that I have loved, and, you know, really have like this special admiration for. So when I got the phone call and I went through the process, I was really gung-ho on, all right, I'm done. I've spent 20 years in the industry. It's time to go do something different. Darn it, Pink Taco roped me right back in. So I was given the opportunity to come on as CMO. I've been here for 8 months now, and I could not be happier that I made the leap to do it. That was like the longest version ever of
That was
where
fantastic.
I come from.
You have an impressive resume. No.
And it's,
What are you going to do for your 27th birthday?
I mean, bedtime's at like 10, so I don't really know what happens before that.
Yeah, you.
You know, definitely like a 6 p.m. dinner.
So a lot of our listeners are in the multifamily industry, which is different from restaurants, but I think you can bring a lot of insight to that industry. And we know that multifamily loves learning from those in hospitality space. So we're going to kick this off with our question: what is your relationship with feedback? What does it mean to you?
I call it a situationship now. My relationship with feedback has really evolved over the years, going from a single unit where sometimes feedback can feel overwhelming and it's very hard not to, you know, attach emotion to it, to where I'm at now, where, you know, we're multi-unit properties. I love feedback. It really dictates what I do for my job, as well as dictate how well I'm doing it. It opens up a line of communication between us and the guest. I've always been a big fan of table touching, or, you know, trying to get in real-time feedback, meaning that I'm going to a table or I'm talking to somebody at the bar and I'm asking about their in real-time experience. We know that's not possible all the time, and it's not possible every time. And at the corporate level, it's impossible almost none of the time. Feedback for us gives us that real insight as to what's happening in the restaurant, both individually and thematically. And I mean that by the individual one-off experiences that people might have, but also thematically, meaning that I'm looking at reviews as a whole or feedback as a whole to find the themes that exist within them to see what we're doing really, really well, and then I can improve upon it, or what potentially could be fixed or needs to be resolved for us to do better for the guests. So my relationship with feedback has always been that the customer gives feedback so that we can do better. And it's just finding ways to silo out the various amounts of feedback that we get to find the truth that exists within it, and then also the remedies that can be provided as a result.
I feel like the restaurant industry too has been one of the original review industries. It's like restaurant review. I just feel like it's always been a part of the culture, and the access to that type of feedback has evolved over the years. We've talked about that a little bit. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the vault. Like, we are in real time, like you mentioned, you can go sit there, you can go chat with people, but also people are so much more likely to leave a review. We have a trove of information. We have all of this access. Can you talk a little bit about how that's evolved over the last, well, 3 for you, but if you were to take a step back,
In the last
in
25
the last
years,
25 years, and how that informs your job today as a
of course,
CMO?
25 years ago, the only real feedback that we had from a guest, so again, in real time, them to a manager, them to a server, them to a bartender, or as I love to always mention, the old comment card and the comment card box. Drop your suggestion here. That really, for a very long time, was the only feedback that we got from guests. There was no Open Table, there was no Yelp, there was no social media. The only feedback that you were getting were the comments that people were leaving in a comment box, if they decided to even leave one at all. So often you would see not just restaurants, but businesses fail and have no understanding as to why they failed. Whether they thought, oh, the customer changed, or, this neighborhood isn't what it used to be, or there was no way to pinpoint what was going wrong within the business to fix it before it failed.
Mhm.
Now, outside of financial reason, it is very easy to pinpoint why a business may fail, or even the opposite of that, why a business might succeed. Now you're able to see, again, thematically what exists within Yelp or Google or TripAdvisor or OpenTable or, any of these platforms to get real insight as to what's happening in your restaurant. We didn't have that before. I, as a business owner, or as somebody who markets restaurants and bases everything I do off of the guest experience, 25 years ago, I'd have to call the restaurant to say, like, hey, how's it going? Like, what are the covers looking like? What's the flow? Feel good in there? How's the music? Everything good? Temperature? That was how the check went. Now it's checking your geotag on Instagram and seeing in real time, like, okay, that drink looks good. This person's having a great time. That bartender is not looking. It's wild, this access to both feedback as it exists, in social review platforms, but also as it exists, because I take feedback as well as what somebody's posting on social media, whether they mean for it to be feedback or not. More often than not, it's just look where I am. But I look at that and go, this person's having a great experience. The restaurant has done their job today. Or this person thinks they're having a great experience, that I see an empty drink, which means someone's thirsty. But there's none of that existed before. So there are so many opportunities to, again, do better. But my favorite thing is, with that comment box that existed 25 years ago, no one was leaving their name or their phone number, because I don't want to hear back from you. The way that it exists now, every channel is an open line of communication. I can respond to somebody on Yelp and say, I'm so sorry that you had a poor experience. Let me do better. Come back in. Let's prove to you that we can be the restaurant that you set out for us to be. There's ways for me to respond back on social by either reposting their experience to show everybody else, like, here's the social proof. This is the new definition of social proof.
Mhm.
Literally, this person's having a great time. You can be here too. Or responding and saying, I'm so sorry this is the experience that you had. What can I do to fix that? Or can we get on a call? I want to hear more about it. Again, none of those things existed 25 years ago. And that has completely altered the landscape of marketing and just, again, I think overall guest perception.
Do you ever find yourself able to identify problems before they become problems? Sort of realizing a crisis is building a groundswell of problems that might become an issue?
Tricky one. Because I feel like there's two different ways to go about that. One, yes, being able to identify a problem in real time that I can see potentially becoming a bigger issue on social media. Sadly, I'd had to deal with that. This is, again, where it's so important as a business owner or as a participant in a business to be so on top of what's happening in your restaurants at real time, because that is where you get ahead of it before it escalates and becomes a much bigger situation. The other thing could be something very simple. In real life example, somewhat recent example, we put together a promotional menu that was marketing wise phenomenal. The messaging was great. The coverage on it was great. Influencers, media, everything about it was so spectacular. But guess what? It was not easy to execute from a kitchen perspective. The amount of time each individual item took made it so, listen, we still were able to execute flawlessly, but it became very apparent very quickly that what I had produced, and I take full ownership for it, wasn't something that was going to create the guest experience that I needed it to be. And once we saw that that was the case, we then pivoted and changed the menu by working a bit more in conjunction, with our incredible culinary team to find out hey, this thing became a lot more successful than we thought it was going to be. So now what can we do to alter it so that we can now pound out 1,000 of these in a week rather than like the 10 I thought we'd done.
Right.
But that was all because of things that happened from a review standpoint or from what we were seeing on social, which was these things are not easy to execute. This is going to create longer lead times. This is going to make it so their entire experience is longer than it should be. And it'll mean that there's bigger waits in between the courses that they're going to have. We need to get ahead of that to make it so that it's not the experience that they have. And we're able to do that. And that was a very, 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 very significant.
Well,
Again, why
imagine-
communication is so important.
Yeah.
Just happened. I
Just
was like,
happened.
sorry, that's my fault.
Well, and you've alluded to this, but I imagine that also requires a feedback loop from your teams at the restaurant as well, and the comfortability to be like, this menu looks amazing, but it's going to take forever for us to execute on these drinks. Talk a little bit about, I'm curious, just your relationship with operations and how that feedback loop is created.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I think one of the greatest things that I learned at the one group was that, in so many restaurant groups, there's always that divide between marketing and operations, right? Or front of the house, back of the house. It's a mindset, it's a mentality. And one of the things that the CEO did at the one group was really remove the silos out of the company so that people in operations were heavily immersed in marketing. People in marketing were heavily immersed in operations. And operations includes culinary. I think that what that did and what that taught me was that you've got to see your part in every situation, and you've got to look at every program and everything that you do as a, you're just one piece of a bigger whole. What I have learned is that line of communication when it comes to that feedback loop always has to be open between culinary, operations, and marketing. And the only way that any company will ever be successful is if that loop that works in all different ways is consistently moving, meaning that operations on the ground is saying, hey, this menu that you have created is causing problems with the restaurant, or hey, this item that you've added to the specials menu is so good that it's now become our number one top seller. Those communications back to marketing are super helpful because it helps us to say, okay, maybe this is something that goes on the menu permanently. Or maybe this is a menu item that needs to be reworked. Or maybe this is something that we remove entirely. Marketing back to operations. Hey, we've noticed that the feedback of this menu is X, Y, or Z. That could be as a result of, we can guess and say a variety of different things, but it's going to have to be that open dialogue with the operations team to go, what do you think is happening? Or what are you seeing on the floor right now? Or what are the servers and the bartenders saying? How is your expo line and how is your kitchen responding to this menu? It's simple things like that, but removing that barrier so that those lines of communication are always open. I learned the one group to know every general manager's first name, to know every AGM's first name, to know the dishwasher's first name, because if dishwasher goes down, the whole operation goes down. The host, I've been an expo at the one group, even as vice president of marketing, going to the restaurant to talk about, actually, funny enough, guest feedback, and then leaving the manager's office to see that the restaurant somehow just got slammed out of nowhere. And I took off my adorable white top that I was wearing and was on expo for 3 hours. But those are things that we learned to do with the one group. You have to be an integral part of the team in order to build trust, and that trust allows communication, and that communication allows you to be successful and to problem solve. Sorry, it was like the longest winded way of saying anything.
I want to know more about the cute white top. What did you have to
The AGM still has it in the trunk of her car. And this is like 2 years later. I every time I wear the bottoms to it, I'm like, oh,
You're like, oh
gosh, she has my top.
oh no, so you
Okay,
haven't even been reunited. You just have the
No,
bottoms.
no. And then I moved to New York, so who knows if I'll ever get it back.
Okay, well,
That's commitment to the team right
I'm
there.
glad I now know that. Yeah, exactly. Your commitment.
That line of communication open, because Katie, let's just pretend I've never met you before, and I come to your restaurant and I say the reviews are bad. They're saying that service is just off and it's terrible, and the people are waiting, and the host just is rude. And, I mean, how are you going to take that information? Probably not well.
Yeah.
First of all,
No.
one, because my deliveries stunk, and two, because we don't know each other. Like there's no trust built. By me always messaging you, and this is the other big thing, and I'm so sorry this might go off a little bit, is that where I might come talk to you about the things that are going wrong is equally as important for me to talk to you about all the things that are going right. And I think that is sometimes a lost art when we look at anything from a feedback perspective. It's very easy to get lost in all of the negativity and to focus on that. It's part of human nature. It's harder to focus on the really positive things and celebrate all of those wins with you. Because the only way that I can earn your respect and we can start this communication of how we're going to do better and have to coexist with celebrating your wins with you and your team and really acknowledging that, it's, what do you want to hear first? The good stuff or the bad stuff? But I think both are equally important, because while you and your team can focus on fixing, these things that might be broken within your establishment, you should really focus on the things that are getting people's attention and that guests are responding to, because at the end of the day, those guests are going to come back because of something you did right. And I think that feedback has to be viewed in both lights.
Do you notice any generational differences between how, let's say, millennials and Gen Z either give feedback or respond to feedback? What do they respond to?
So the huge difference in the way that, like, I feel like my generation was like Yelp. Like that was like, we were kind of like the first generation to like really have it and like really grab onto it. And I mean, and let's be honest, the early iterations of Yelp were this grocery store line is ridiculous. And then you just go like right to Yelp and it's like, I'm Yelping about a grocery store and they're just ridiculous long line at 5:30 p.m. Everyone's out of work. How do you not know that this is bad? I feel like there was, there's then this transition from everything bad when it comes to how we were reviewing restaurants 15 years ago to now it's more about how we experience restaurants. And I think that every restaurant now is getting reviewed, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And part of that is this newer generation's sense of responsibility to their peers to tell them what their true experience was at this location Either as a sense of advocacy, because I really do feel like this newer generation has a much bigger sense of advocacy than maybe my generation did, and you see it on social media, right? When somebody has just an over the top, incredible experience, and it wasn't because like the experience was supposed to be over the top and ridiculous. It could be that the server did something that was so above and beyond their call of duty that like it really resonated with the guest, or that the bartender just remembered them and then went out of their way to do something extra special because they came back. Like those things create that advocacy and that loyalty in this newer generation. And that newer generation is really good at calling it out. Those are things that I don't know were as prevalent when my generation was coming up. And partially because I think that to a certain degree, there was some entitlement with my generation. And the other reason I say that is then it was like, who didn't belong to the TGI Fridays like loyalty club? Come on. I was with like my frozen cocktail. I wanted my Jack Daniel's like buffalo wings or whatever they were. And I got them by like using my points. So I didn't feel entitled because I was entitled. I felt entitled because I belonged to this loyalty program that gave me all of these things. And with those programs 20 years ago, there were 4 or 5 that were just so prevalent. They're not as prevalent now. I mean, while you were being rewarded for frequency 20 years ago, I feel like you're being less rewarded now than you were 10. But I do feel like now the restaurants that are successful, the businesses that are successful are the ones that are going above and beyond, again, that call of duty or what's expected of them to create a connection with the guest so that we're creating that sense of efficacy. Because there's no better reward that we can get as a business than somebody referring us to somebody else. That they are saying, you can trust me, in my opinion. This place is where I had the greatest experience ever. If you go, you will also have that great experience. That's the law. It's easy to say like something was good or something was bad in any business. It's a totally different thing for that advocacy piece to come into play. So it's changed a lot, and I hope I answered that question.
I mean, to be fair, I had a flip phone until 2012. So the technology maybe just wasn't as prevalent, but it has influenced behavior as well. And I mean, I had my wedding anniversary this weekend. We were up in Montreal.
Happy anniversary. Oh, what a great place.
Katie's wedding anniversary is also this week, so happy anniversary.
And I'm also going to Montreal. Sorry. I'm obsessed
We
with
went
Jake.
first.
Mine is in 2 weeks, but I am not going to Montreal.
Okay, well, maybe you
You
should
should-
change your
you should.
plans then.
It's a place to go. But I think I came back immediately.
I love Montreal.
Immediately came back and wanted to share the experiences with the team. I wanted to say where we went, and there's a sense of pride there and ownership to, I guess, just have something cool to say, but also to share that experience with other people so that you can create more of a
You have a
bond.
responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and everyone wants connection,
Mhm.
right? I want to if I walk into a restaurant and I'm vibing with the server or I'm the bartender, everyone wants to feel like they walk in somewhere and they belong or they're a part of something. And I think that type of experience, I talk about it, I remember my last trip to Montreal, we went to the Speakeasy and we chatted with the bartender for a half an hour and it was so fun. And now I'm like, yeah, go there and you're going to feel like you belong. And I think that type of connection is so important to shine through in our experiences.
Well, I mean, again, I go back to, not to date myself, but I really feel like I'm doing a good job in this podcast. My first bar that I ever used to go to, like, I'm going to bring it up again, was TGI Fridays. I'm from a small town in Massachusetts, and it's not like there were just like bars crawling all over the place. But I went back to that bar over and over and over again because Dale, my bartender, he was the greatest. And we all gravitated towards Dale. And when TGI Fridays sadly closed and Dale moved over to another restaurant, we followed her to that restaurant. When I moved to LA, I had a bar that I went to that when I walked in, before I even sat down, my drink was put down. It was a disgusting trifecta of drink. I think it was a Miller Lite, a Jägermeister, and a water. Regardless, they knew. But I mean, those experiences, like that sense of community, that sense of belonging, are a lot harder to come by now than they used to be. And that's just, for a multitude of reasons. Fads change, trends change. You see it. People are going out less, or when they are going out, they're not necessarily frequenting the same places because they want a different experience every time they go and spend their hard-earned money. And I think that that's what's made, again, just going back to like the guest experience, the guest experience has never been more important than it is right now.
Mm-hmm. You said something when we chatted, and I think where the magic happens is when you have an experience and you go back and you have that same experience that you were expecting. And you have it at the LA Pink Taco, and you have it at the New York Pink Taco, and you have it in Boston. How does that consistency come through in your marketing, and how does that support what your efforts do?
Oh, I see where you're going.
I'm
You're
leading
quoting
you. I'm really leading you, and I don't want to take the quote away from you.
So you did a really good job. I was like, wow. So, but quoting one of my favorite mantras on the planet, which is consistency in operations is the best marketing strategy. And it's true. Marketing does not exist without great, consistent, quality operations. And especially when you are a multi-unit property that has locations all over the country and in very like high trafficked areas, we need to make sure that our experience in Los Angeles is matching the experience that you're getting in New York City when that LA person is going to visit New York City, or that the experience somebody had in the New York City property matches what it is when they go to DC for work and they visit the Pink Taco in that location. The only reason marketing is here is because operations exist. My job is to support operations in any possible way that I can. But you also, at the same time, don't ever want to drive a consumer into a bad restaurant. I remember even when I was a publicist that we would go vet restaurants prior to ever signing them to our agency. And the reasoning for that was, if we're good for doing our job, we're going to get you all of this media coverage. But if we are pushing your restaurant and it's a bad product and bad service and just overall a bad experience, you will close. Because the more people we push in to have that core experience, there is no loyalty, there is no advocacy, there are one and done. And eventually that well one runs dry. And so it's so important that with each one of our locations that we have consistent operations, we have that consistent great guest experience. Because what could happen, theoretically, I'm not saying it's never happened, but somebody could come to New York that didn't know there was a Pink Taco in Los Angeles, but they live in Los Angeles. They could have, let's just say for whatever reason, they don't have a great time in New York. I just lost my opportunity to ever get them to try me in Los Angeles. And that's super, super key and important to us when we really look at our operations in our restaurant when it comes to food quality, beverage quality, service quality, facility, DJ, the guest journey of how they got there, and the guest journey is how we communicate with them after they've left. We want to make sure that every touch point within that journey is perfect, because it has to be in order for us to get them to come back or to go to somewhere, go to our other locations. But that only happens when operations is consistent. Consistency in operations is the best marketing strategy.
Beautiful.
I love that book. It's right here. It's a full page. But again, and to tie that back in with feedback, marketing has a duty to operations to help them make sure that their operations is consistent. And the reason that I say that is going back to reviews and the feedback that we receive and that we compile and that we put into word clouds or sentiment clouds and, the information that we silo. Operations is so busy and so in the thick of the things. They are the people on the front lines at all times being slammed and come at from all of the direction. Marketing sometimes just sits here at a computer and we just get to look at all the information. It's our duty to take the information that we compile and talk to the team about it and do that in a way that's going to help them fix any inconsistencies, because they don't always have the time, or let's be honest, sometimes it's the emotion that's attached to it because that's like me talking badly about your child. No one wants to hear that. It's not
Yeah.
going to happen. Like, we didn't do that. That never happened. Well, look what that person's mother did. I mean, it's just it's very emotional. I get to take a bit of that emotion out of it, look at it objectively, and start to figure out, again, what are those themes that we're seeing, and then go work with the restaurant to say, hey, this is not my opinion. This is not what I'm seeing, but this is what is existing right now in regards to customer feedback. How can I help you address some of these things? Just by giving them the information, I'm helping them to be more consistent in their operations. I'm not doing anything. I'm not having to do any of the hard work that they have to do. I'm only playing a small piece of it, just showing them that this is the information that's out there. And then they take it and they do with it what they will. And sometimes it's just about education. And it's either meaning that I'm not educating the guests on the marketing end of things for the program that we are offering, or marketing owes the servers and the staff in the restaurant more education. I have failed on my part of not giving them the tools they need to be successful with whatever the campaign might be. And I think that when we're looking at again, consistency in operation, marketing plays a huge role in it, in either being effective and effectively good or effectively bad. I think marketing can play a role in both.
Yeah, I think you've done such a good job at Pink Taco at creating the brand, and everyone is a part of something that's bigger than their one role. And I think that becomes a really key part of giving feedback. And I promise this will be the last time I bring it up. When I was building my house, the house yesterday, I
The wrong way.
the wrong way. I was also taught how to use a power drill, and I was doing it wrong. And in front of everyone, this guy was telling me I was doing it wrong. And I didn't care, because the whole bigger picture here was safety. We were here to help. We were here to be safe. I'm going to give you feedback. You give me feedback about if I'm explaining it poorly. And we were all kind of the focus was not about Katie doing a really poor job. The focus was we all want to be safe and we all want to do this right. And I think that idea of this is Pink Taco, this is our brand, this is how we do things, this is how we want this to look. That's the reason I'm helping you here. It's not because I'm here to tell you that you're doing a terrible job. But like, I think that there's a bigger, broader education that can take place that you've done a really good job of this is what the experience is at Pink Taco, and this is what we're creating, and this is what's going on. And so that higher element of this is why I'm giving this feedback becomes important, and it's less about the person or their particular execution.
And I think you hit on something that's really good. Oftentimes it's about perception, right? I mean, so where he said you're doing something wrong, it was in front of, all of those people. There's almost like an authoritative nature there. I try to say this as often as possible whenever I'm in a group setting with any of the teams, or, when a GM or an exec chef calls my phone. These restaurants do not work for me. These GMs, servers, bartenders, exec chefs, dishwashers, porters do not work for me. Just the opposite. I work for them. Without them, I don't exist. Without a great guest experience, I don't exist. And if I'm not doing everything in my power to give them the tools they need to be successful, and that could be everything from doing a server bingo contest to creating a certificate for an employee of the month, or whatever it is that they think of, I make sure, and I don't like toot my own horn for a lot of things, but I very much pride myself on this. I always end every call with how can I help you, or what can I do to make things better. I make sure that when I leave a restaurant, I do the exact same thing. And because this is always my favorite, whenever someone calls on a Saturday night, because, I work in an office mostly from, let's just say, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. When someone calls my phone on a Saturday night, they go, I am so sorry I'm calling you right now. I work when you work. I work when you are busy. I am here for you especially when the masses are attacking you from all angles. I think that it's a lot easier to be a part of the team and get to be constructive when you realize, especially like again, just because CMO is part of a C-suite, that means nothing at the end of the day, because I'm not doing my job if I'm not working for you to make it so that your establishment is the best it can possibly be from the guest experience, from a server experience, from just an employee relations experience. That is my sole job and my sole focus. And I think that making that distinction makes it a lot easier when something does go wrong and you have to have a conversation about it, like using your power drill incorrectly.
Yeah, it was quite embarrassing, but it worked out.
Once again, my long-winded way of getting back to a...
Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you
God,
rock. Thank you.
Thanks
the
for having
best.
me. Anytime I get to just talk, I'm game. That way my team doesn't have to listen to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.